All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to our second video. This is covering Module 2, Organizing Data. First thing I'll say is please don't come at me for what I'm wearing. It's cold out here. You know, I'm just trying to stay warm. All right, just trying to stay warm. Um, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Like I mentioned, this first recording or the series of recordings is on the topic of organizing data. This is our second module, part of our second unit of content for this semester. And for this particular presentation, we're really only focused on this idea of organizing data. As we're about to get into the material, one of the things that I like to do with each new module of content is to demonstrate to you all how it is that what we're discussing now builds on the content that we've covered in a singular previous or across previous modules that we've already covered. So for this one in particular, just as a matter of illustrating to you how you are building knowledge from our first module on what is behavioral statistics until now, in the module, What is Behavioral Statistics, we learned about descriptive statistics. And as a reminder, descriptive statistics are used to organize, summarize, and clarify data. Excuse me. So, to do this, social scientists create tables, graphs, and charts to simplify the readability of our data. And that's the focus of this entire second module around organizing data. One of the things that I want to share with you all now, and it's something that I'm going to do my best to reinforce throughout the rest of the semester, is as we are discussing these various topics that we're going to cover in this class, one of the things that I want to impart upon you all is the importance of understanding your role in this as a social scientist. Now, I understand, this is an introductory course to this idea of behavioral statistics, but it's an important course to introduce you all, for those of you who you may be majoring in psychology, sociology, human development. As you continue throughout your educational career, you are undoubtedly going to enter into new classes where you're being asked to expand on this kind of information that we're covering in this class. So part of what I want to make sure you understand is, as I'm asking you all to grapple with this material, to learn what this material is, what it means, and how it's used, is because I'm trying to get you all to think as social scientists. I want you to become a social scientist from taking this class, right? Again, it's not to finish this class and suddenly you are an expert in all things social science related, but this is the start. And like I said, it's about getting you to that point of understanding how to think like a social scientist. I am a sociologist, so I'll reinforce here that the way I approach a lot of material is going to be from a sociological perspective, but this material can broadly be applied to a variety of behavioral and social sciences. So, with that said, to do this, again, social scientists, we're creating these tables, these charts, these graphs to help for readability. This helps us as social scientists and our audience, whoever our audience may be. It could be other researchers, the wider social science community, or it could be, if we're trying to produce this material for a general population, general public, to help identify patterns. So that's really the purpose of being able to organize data. So we're now going to expand on this idea by learning about what are called frequency distributions. So the key concepts that are going to be covered throughout this second module are going to be frequency distributions, data tables, group frequency distributions, and finally graphs. For this first video here, it's just covering the introduction. Then we're gonna go ahead and get right into frequency distributions. Other videos later will cover the content for data tables, group frequency distributions, and graphs. Y'all like my coffee cup, huh? I know you do. It's all right. All right, here we go. Frequency distributions. What are they? So, raw data is often difficult to synthesize or to use to identify patterns. And the way that I like to explain this is to think about collecting survey data, right? If you've ever been out, I've seen this happen in front of Walmart, for example. You got people out front who are asking people to complete surveys for them. You're going in, you're checking out boxes or scribbling these short answers, And those individuals are taking that material back and they're going to do something with it, right? But if you're standing outside a place like Walmart and you're asking people to fill out your survey, you're going to end up with a lot of data, right? When we discuss material in this class, I might present ideas using much smaller sets of data, but I'm going to reinforce throughout the semester that imagine if we were working with a large data set. Right? When you think about data that's collected across the United States, we're talking easily in the thousands of people's worth of data. And so if I collect, let's say I'm working across the United States, let's say across all Walmarts, throughout the United States, and I survey, 3,000 people, I can't just, take that stack of surveys, put them in front of any one person and say, tell me about a pattern that exists in this data, right? Look at this stack of 3,000 plus people and tell me what the average age is here. There's no way to do that with raw data. So we use frequency distributions to help us synthesize and make sense of that data so then we can go about the process of identifying those patterns. Social researchers use formulas and statistical techniques to transform raw data into meaningful and organized set of measures that can be used to test hypotheses. The idea of testing hypotheses, we're not going to really get into much until we get to the section of inferential statistics. But for now, understand that you can kind of think of descriptive statistics almost as a step before inferential statistics. Frequency distributions, and sometimes I'll refer to them as tables. You might see them throughout, these various videos referred to as tables, are created to aid this transformation in the form of a table. So let's go ahead and kind of just see a very quick example using a data set around this idea of social media avoidance. Now, social media is super important in our society. There's all this conversation around TikTok being banned and the way that social media is being used in a political sense, in an entrepreneurial sense. So social media is a big deal, right? One of the things that I think is kind of difficult to imagine. Don't get me wrong; there are absolutely people who have zero, social media presence, but that's very likely. I ain't got the numbers on this, but it's very likely to be a statistically small number of people who have zero social media presence, as long as we're talking about people who have access to be able to use social media in the first place. Now I'm just getting caught up on a tangent. Anyways, bringing this back. Let's say we survey 30 people with the question, what is the longest period of time in days that you have not used social media? All right. So we collect their data and then we're going to present that data as this table that I have in front of you here. So if you just take a moment to look at it and I ask you to tell me something about this data, it's possible that you might be able to come to some conclusions very quickly. For example, just briefly scanning through this data set here, we see that there are people who say zero, right? If each of these boxes represent a different person, there are some people who are saying to us that the longest period of time I've gone without using social media is 0 days. I'm using my social media every day. On the other hand, the highest number I see here is 8. So someone is saying, or some people are saying, I have gone 8 days without using social media. We don't see any nines represented here. And I point that out to say that this data that we've collected, we've got to take it at face value, right? It's not for us necessarily to say, how come we don't have any nines? That could be a question that we might inquire about later as social scientists. But for right now, we're just taking this data and we're asking ourselves, what can we determine with this? And again, we might be able to see that the lowest number is 0, highest number is 8. But as far as patterns, I don't know that we can really determine any patterns as of right now. So let's kind of expand on this idea of social media avoidance in terms of what it would look like to convert this raw data into a table. And so this table that I have here is the same data set that I presented on the previous slide. But now here's what happens when we take this data and we transform it into what's called a frequency table. we have now reorganized, summarized, and clarified. I'm just trying to get in the habit of using those three terms, right? Those are the terms that we apply to descriptive statistics. Particularly in talking about what we're doing with raw data. We've now organized it into a table that makes a little bit more sense to us, right? So we have two columns in this table. In the left column, we're seeing what the different responses were, what the responses of our participants were. And on the right side, we're being introduced to this symbol called frequency, right? Well, the symbol is F and it's an italicized F, but this F represents frequency. Now, in this instance, what this frequency means is the number of times that the category in the left column was selected. All right. So if we're to read through some of the data that we have here, in terms of the number of people who responded that they avoided social media for 8 days, our frequency is three, which means that of the 30 people we surveyed, three of them have avoided social media for a maximum of 8 days. All right, so that's how we want to think about what's being presented here. It's not that it's something that I need you all to kind of inherently grasp more than you have to get in the practice of being able to understand what's being presented to you, how it's being presented, what kind of data is being produced, and how are we as both the producers and at times the consumers of this research, what sense are we making of this? We have three people who responded that they are avoiding social media for 8 days. We have three people who are responding they're avoiding social media for 7 days. Two people responded for 6 days. Two people for 5 days. Three people for 4 days. Four people for 3 days. Four people for 2 days. Six people for one day. And, just reiterating that point that we had three people who said, I don't avoid social media. I'm on it all the time. Okay. So, what's important to note about this frequency is really just kind of reiterating what I mentioned, that the frequency represents how many participants responded with the category in the left column. So keep that in mind, right? If we're looking at this, if we were only presented with this frequency table, we would be able to determine how many people responded to this survey by adding up all of the numbers in our frequency column. Because remember, this represents the number of people who are responding to each of these categories. So if remember on the previous slide, I mentioned to you that we're surveying 30 people. The data, the raw data on the left represents all 30 people. By adding up the numbers in our frequency column on the right, we should be able to determine that we have the same number of people represented in this particular frequency table as we did with the original data. And if you were to pause this video and do the addition there, you would find out that yes, that is the case. We have 30 people represented, just as a matter of making sure that our data is being transformed correctly, right? We're not missing anybody. Okay.